This takes me up to a man, I'm backing up a little bit when I get to Britain, a man named John Maynard Keynes. I know that the name is not spelled right now, but John Maynard Keynes. Keynes had an idea of how government should combat depression. Here's what he said: when times get hard, government should spend more money. You know, where government should start building bridges, building roads, building schools, anything at all, but spend more money, put people to work, and lower taxes, which will encourage spending. Now, okay, guess what? How do you spend more? Look, what Keynes had a solution. Government should deficit spend. In other words, borrow money and spend like crazy. And here's the great idea. Once the depression is over, which it will end, then the government can go back to paying off the debt. How many of you know what has happened? I mean, with the governments of the reason this man is very important is that governments for the last 80 years have practiced Keynesian economics. When does the government stop spending and start balancing its budget?
Never.
Never. In one word, never. Basically, here's what we're doing. I mean, when I was a kid, or my 8th grade history talked about this very phenomenon. We have a debt ceiling limit. We get to the limit and we raise the ceiling. Or we get to that, then we raise the ceiling. We get to that, then we raise the ceiling. And folks, it's getting to where.
No, Clinton did.
Now, Clinton, I want to call it clear. There have been 3 times in my lifetime the budget's been balanced. Richard Nixon did it in 1969, and due to good fortune, the ball bouncing his way, all right, Clinton did manage the economy well. Right. But Clinton balanced his budget 2 times. Of the 8 years he was made up a budget, he balanced his 2 times. But a lot of it was due to good fortune that happened Bill Clinton's way. We'll talk about in a little bit. But otherwise, what they did, both men, they balanced their budget for 1 year, or in Clinton's case, 2 years. That did not offset all the years we've gone deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. But Keynes said the government should keep on spending, and eventually we'll get out of debt. Then we can stop our spending, our deficit spending, and pay off the debt. The problem for you is, folks, it has not worked. And some people believe that Keynesian economics is going to eventually result in, I hate to say this to young folk, because I was young once and I hate to hear it because we were under the threat too, could result in the worst depression this country has, or this world has seen in modern times. That'll make the depression like the 30s, like the 30s seem like heaven by comparison. I'm not saying it will happen, but I mean, the big someday, the governments of the world are going to go bankrupt if they're not close to it already. But anyway, Keynes had the idea. All right, what does this have to do with Social Security? Quite a bit. Our Social Security system's going bankrupt. Medicare is bankrupt. And the countries of Europe are having to undergo some changes to keep them from out of bankruptcy. You don't hear as much about it now because our minds are on other problems, but the fact is, Greece in particular, what I'll call them, the PIIGS, sometimes called the pigs. The nations are Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and Spain. These 5 European countries are dragging the whole world's economy down.
What about Iceland?
Maybe Iceland's one of them also. I've heard of Ireland instead, but perhaps Iceland also. Yes. What you say? The 5 nations I know about, the pigs, and again, this won't be on a test: Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and Spain. Now, I say Greece. Greece has a very bad income to deficit to spending ratio. Greece is spending more money than they're taking in. The United States' spending ratio is even worse than Greece's. But the United States economy is bigger. And I say this, and I'm going to jump to 2014. We seem to be on the verge of a big economic war with Russia and China. And I've got something to tell you, folks, that I don't like to say. I don't think the United States can win it this time. If you don't like what I'm saying, you're welcome to contradict me if you will. Who owns our economy right now?
China.
All of you know that. I mean, I've been told that college students don't know a lot, but every class I teach, all of you know, China owns us.
Well, we were saying that in an earlier class that, and I mean, China would come in and say, pay up or get out.
Pay up or get out. And also, as for Russia, We don't have a means to get to the space station anymore, except we fly our astronauts on Russian spaceships.
Right.
We don't have our own spaceships in operation anymore. So and all they have to do is say, you can't fly with us anymore. And they own space, at least for the time being. Yes, Dennis.
Richard.
Oh, Richard, your name's Richard? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is that a reason why there's like a rat race to try to make the economy, to balance the economy, and to start paying back China the trillions of dollars that we owe them, so that they won't owe us, they won't own us anymore, and we won't have to worry about them coming here and just.
I wish it were that easy. There's one super big problem with that. We don't have the trillions.
Well, I know that because every time I watch CNN, it's funny because seeing all these people laugh. But my point is, I'm just trying to figure out, is that why they're continuously trying to tell everyone we need more science and engineering jobs, and et cetera, it's because they're trying to get more money into the economy. Before this.
I hope that we're not going to try to get it by government intervention. I hope it will come from the private sector. It's my hope. I do have to move on. Just bear with me. Well, you have anything?
I was just gonna say, aren't we, it's like we're kind of bargaining with China right now, even now.
We have
There's like
to.
these negotiations going on, trying to barter with them, you know?
All right, I'm going to jump to socialism in Soviet Russia. In effect, right after the communists took over, a famine occurred in Russia, and for 2 years, the Russian people starved. Your book mentions at least 5 million of them starved. There was to be millions more that starved under Stalin, but at least 5 million of them starved to death. And finally, Lenin decided to relax his socialistic, communistic policies and allow capitalism in, and a measure of prosperity returned to Russia. I mean, folks, this is right here in the book on page 690. Lenin got up a new economic policy, and he told the peasants, you can keep some of the food you produce. For formerly, the peasants had to turn in all the food, and they said, we're going to take it from you and then give back to everybody equally. Well, the peasants were told so the peasants had more incentive to try to produce more food, knowing they're going to get to keep it. I mean, folks, this is fundamental human nature. And the starvation stopped. He called it the new economic policy. Now, there is a woman, and this I want to emphasize, Alexandra Kolonada. She pushed for women's rights in Russia. Now, I mentioned how there was a big worldwide women's revolution. Alexandra Kolonada's got a law passed in Russia that women were to be considered equal to men. Women could divorce their husbands. Women became a civil act, not a religious act. They created the equality of women and for men and women and permitted abortions. Again, you can make up your mind what you want to. But now here I'm going to go beyond what the book is telling you, folks. This is something, your book will wind up dealing with this subject later when we come to Stalin. But basically what Lenin had, he permitted what they called free love. In other words, every man and every woman had equal sexual access to each other. And they thought, hey, this would be great. This is a way to show that this is how wonderful communism is. Instead, what happened? Children did not know who their fathers were. Mothers had to take care of raising all the children they had because the fathers were deadbeat. Your book just says that eventually these reforms were undermined as Russia had to face other problems. What your book does not say is that a lot of their women became what you might call neurotic or psychotic, or another way of putting it is nervous wrecks. Put it any way you want to. It got so bad that Stalin came along and this is in your book, he outlawed adultery, outlawed pornography, outlawed abortion, and said all deadbeat dads have to either pay up or go to jail. And basically he said every man who brings a child in the world has to pay to support that child. Essentially, what I'm talking about here is what's called the boiled frog syndrome. They say if you put a frog in boiling water, he'll immediately hop out. If you put a frog in cold water and gradually bring that water to a boil, you can boil that frog to death and he won't feel a thing. The Russians jumped into the cauldron of immorality and hopped right out. In the West, we're slowly being boiled in the same cauldron and we don't feel it. If you want to argue, go ahead. But here's something else the book says, and I'm looking right at it. a lot of the men became so upset at the women because during the days of Peter the Great, when a couple got married, the man was given a whip and he said, with this, you keep your wife in line. I'm not in any way advocating that, folks. Because it's known that if they actually got together, oftentimes strong-willed women would still control their weak-willed husbands. I mean, this is the way things often go in human nature. Two people get together, one of them is going to be stronger than the other. But a lot of the men resorted to killing their wives and children, their female children, their wives and daughters, because they couldn't stand the liberty and freedom that their daughters were taking. Again, this is right in the book. And after a while, the communists gave up on gave up on their free love and making their men and women equal. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about art and then go on. The one thing I want you to remember about art is they tried to use Sigmund Freud and probe the subconscious, unconscious, and your book shows some examples, particularly examples on page 692 and 693. The word I want you to remember is surrealism. And it's a reality of the dream, trying to bring alive the dreams, and also they were trying to cope with, among other things, the sheer horrors of war. And some artists had the attitude of all of life is just utterly aimless and purposeless anyway, and it's one big nightmare. Your book calls it Dadaism. You'll find that word on page 691. Just simply trying to depict a sheer, raw purposelessness and aimless, that life has always been this way and it's heading nowhere. It came from nowhere and has no goal and no destination. Now, let me hasten to state, I don't intend to teach that, but a lot of people at this time believe that. Again, it was because of the sheer horrors and awfulness of war. And a lot of the art attempted to depict the unconscious and the subconscious. Okay. All right, having said that, a few things then I will say about the test. And again, I can't tell you which questions you have and which ones you don't, because the way I made up the test, I gave you half of them. If you come to a question about which countries got rid of their royal houses in World War I, if Great Britain is one of the choices, folks, what do you do with that choice? Move on to the next choice. Why? Great Britain still had its royal house. All right. Process of elimination. So if you see that question, and if Great Britain is one of the answers, look for another choice that doesn't have Great Britain. If Spain is one of the choices, well, guess what? Spain has a royalty on its throne right now also. So Denmark, they have royalty on their throne also. So if you know of a country that still has royalty on the throne, but can you name 5 countries that don't anymore? They did 100 years ago. France. Well, France didn't 100 years ago. No, France had gotten rid of his king. But Germany, Austria, Russia, China, Germany, Austria, Russia, and China. China was 1905, a little more. And the Ottoman Empire. Yeah, Germany, Austria, Russia, China, and the Ottoman Empire. 4 of them as a result of World War I. So again, it's called process of elimination. Let's see if I can think of another one. Going back, the person whose assassination, he was heir to which throne? The person whose assassination triggered World War I was heir to which throne?
Austria.
Heir to the Austrian throne. He was killed, and again, these country stories, he was killed in the town of Sarajevo in Bosnia. And again, these cities have made news during your lifetimes. Let's see. Who was the last Tsar of Russia?
Nicholas II.
There was a canal that was dug to join the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Which canal is it? Suez Canal. Joined the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea.
Ferdinand de Lesseps.
What's that?
Ferdinand de Lesseps, who built it.
Yeah. Who built it? The nation of France did a lot to build it. Wide, deep ditch joins the Red Sea and the Mediterranean. All right. Oh yeah, colonies. Which nation got Algeria?
France,
Which nation got Vietnam?
France,
Which nation got Egypt?
England,
Britain.
Yeah, Great Britain. Which nation wound up with Iraq? Iraq. France, yeah. Which nation wound up stealing South Africa?
Britain,
Britain. Who did they steal it from?
Denmark,
Holland. Holland, yeah, the Boers were actually Dutch, Hollanders. Yeah. All right. Those are the colonies. Oh, yeah. Reasons for why did people want to take colonies? They wanted to do what to the other people? Convert them to Christianity, civilize them, bring commerce, trade. They believed that they were doing what was best for the people. And again, folks, just because some of you I can tell are dissatisfied the way I'm conducting the class, what I think I'm doing is best for all of you, and going to be best for you, and benefit all of you in the long run. Dig hard, do your best, and you'll turn out well.